All right. Hello. So this is the second part of my Russian language learning experience, my retelling of the experience. Please check out the first part if you haven't already. And okay, so I started learning Russian January 2020 at university. We had a class and we had an online textbook called Между нами. This is a free textbook. A lot of the resources I mention, I'll try to link them in the description if you are learning Russian and you want some cool recommendations. So in class, we learned the alphabet. That was the first thing. And then we learned some basic words. Like the textbook has a story about these American students who are spending a year in Russia in an exchange program. So we read the story. You know, it starts off very simple, like "Это Amanda, она студентка, она едет в Россию." And there's little pictures of her going to Russia. And you click the audio, you listen. Okay, it's very simple. So we learned the alphabet, we read the stories, listened to the audio, learned very basic, some verb conjugations like хотеть, я хочу, ты хочешь, like the basic, most common verbs, and just some random vocabulary. COVID happened in that semester, so we kind of lost some time, and in that first semester, we never even got to cases. We didn't start learning about the case system. Now, I knew what cases were because the semester prior, the previous semester, I took a Latin course. I learned what cases are. Before then, I had no idea that languages have cases. And cases mean that the ending of a word will change depending on what case it's in. So this will sound really weird, but I'll do a Frankenstein thing and I'll attach cases to English right now. So dog, that's a dog. Dog is standing right there, that's a dog. I see the dogga. I give food to the dogu. So you kind of see what's going on here maybe. Direct action. I see the dogga. Dog is now the direct object of me seeing it. I give food to the dogu. Dog is an indirect object. Food is the direct object. And by the way, food would have to change too, but we're just talking about a dog here. Hopefully that made sense. But that's the case system. It's a mess for an English native speaker. Whew, it's a lot to wrap your head around. So I knew what cases were. My first semester of Russian, we didn't talk about cases. I read ahead in the textbook. I found out that Russian has cases, and I said, it's over. I remember in Latin class writing out all the declensions, all these case endings, and thinking, my God, this is ridiculous. When I found out that Russian has cases too, I told myself, it's over. I'm not learning Russian anymore. There's no way. I can't learn these case endings. It's a mess. I don't want to do it. It's too much work. It's too hard. I literally thought, oh, this is going to, either I'm quitting or this is going to be a frickin' nightmare. Also, I want to add, I'm trying to talk about things I did to learn Russian. I started Duolingo this same time. When I signed up for the Russian language class, I started Duolingo. I ended up having a 2-year streak on Duolingo where I would use it every day for like 10, 15 minutes. So Duolingo was going on in the background this entire time. I take my first semester of Russian. The semester ends in April. That's about the same time I read ahead in the book and learned about cases. Around that same time, I downloaded an app called HelloTalk. HelloTalk is an app for language exchange. You find, say you're a Canadian, you're a native English speaker, you're learning Russian, you find a Russian native speaker who's learning English, you swap languages. You have a language exchange. It's a great app. I've made a lot of Russian-speaking friends on this app, many of whom we still communicate to this day. It's great. People can make posts on this app. I think an American guy learning Russian made a post on HelloTalk about comprehensible input, about Stephen Krashen. I read his post. I even left a comment like, what is this comprehensible input? Is it just immersion? Like what? he left a comment. He kind of explained what he thought it was. Then I looked up Stephen Crash and I watched a video, and I thought, whoa, this is a totally, and this is not a new theory. I mean, Stephen Krashen, he himself didn't discover this, but it became known in like I think the 70s or 80s. It's been around for a while. We have the traditional learning, the textbook, classroom, go to class, talk to your professor, grab your textbook, do your exercises. That's how we learn. And then comprehensible input comes along and says, no, you don't do any of that. Don't do any of that. From day one, you can use the language in the classroom. And it kind of follows the same logic of how a baby learned their native language. But it's hard to explain. Go look up. I'll try to link some Stephen Krashen stuff, comprehensible input stuff. And another method that's kind of really close to comprehensible input is TPRS. And there's a YouTube channel, Real Russian Club. She made a series of TPRS audio lessons. I would listen to these lessons over and over and over again while I was driving. And I intuitively learned a lot of the grammar through these lessons, a lot of the simple conjugations of verbs, some case endings, some just structures, learning the language like in a chunk kind of, Around that same time, spring 2020, I discovered the band Kino, and I downloaded a lot of their music. I would write down the lyrics in a notebook, and the words I didn't know, I would have little translations on the side. And I would listen to the song and read along with my text, and then I would start singing along, read and sing along with the audio playing, and then it got to a point where I could just sing along without looking at the text. And then it got to a point where I could just sing the song without even hearing the music. I learned these songs by heart. So through music, you can learn a lot of words. And obviously, this entire time, I kept using HelloTalk to chat with people in Russian. And at the start, I was literally communicating through a translator. Russians would send me these messages. I'd have to translate it. And then if I wanted to reply, I had to write my answer in a translation. And every day I was on HelloTalk. And pretty much every day someone new would text me. That's another thing. If you're a native English speaker on HelloTalk and you have a nice profile, you have a nice picture, you might get a lot of people wanting to talk to you. That was my experience. Every day, like every time I opened the app, there'd be like 10 new people wanting to talk to me and chat in Russian. So I had a lot of the same conversations, how are you? Tell me about yourself. A lot of these words became automatic, and I stopped using a translator. And then I made a friend on HelloTalk, and we talked regularly, like a few times a week. So our conversations we talked about different things. And obviously this whole time I'm still using Duolingo. I'm still watching videos on YouTube. I discovered another great channel called Russian with Max. Great channel. If you're like A2, B1-ish, not a total beginner, but not advanced either. It's a great channel. So I kept input, listening to the language, texting people on HelloTalk, learning songs, playing Duolingo, and it's hard for me to even describe it because it was all so haphazardly done. There was no plan, like, okay, I got to do X, Y, Z and learn Russian. Today I'm going to tackle this grammar point. There was no stressing about grammar. There was no textbooks. I would read Между нами, like our online textbook, and read maybe about grammar. That's about it. I wasn't sitting there trying to, oh my God, stress and memorize all these case endings and declensions and grammar rules. I never did any of that. I never stressed about grammar. I never put grammar at the forefront. It was like 5-10% of what my energy would go towards grammar. And literally I would like read about grammar. There's other apps I used, Pimsleur I used, but I think by the time I used Pimsleur, I was a bit more advanced for like the beginner Pimsleur course, but I think Pimsleur was all right. Busu was another app I used, I think was decent. There's another app I used that I can't remember the name now, I'm sure I'll write it on the screen here. And yeah, I just kept watching YouTube videos. I found a site called Diety Online, and there was a bunch of audiobooks and books on that site that you could have for free. Like I read Carlsen, Который живет на крыше. I read and listened to it. And I would read it on my laptop and listen at the same time, and then highlight the words I didn't know, translate them, and then go read that chapter again and listen to it again. I listened to Harry Potter in Russian, the first book, the audio book, while I was driving. I kept learning new songs from Kino. Like I said, I kept talking to people on Hello Talk, making new friends. Find other YouTube channels. There's so many great YouTube channels for people who are learning Russian. And I mean, you know, in a way, it's basically immersion, I guess, immersion type learning. And in the beginning, you have to start with like the most basic type of material. Like, это моя голова, это моя рука. Это моя рука, это моя голова. Это моя голова? Нет, это не моя голова, это моя рука. Like, that's literally what I started with. Like, they talk to you like you're a baby. It sounds ridiculous, but you combine that, and with grammar, I think all you have to do is read about grammar. Be aware of the case system. Know what cases are. Know what perfective and imperfective verbs are. You know? Maybe spend 5 minutes reading about it. And look, I'm never going to claim I speak Russian well. My grammar does suck. It's not the greatest, but it depends on your goals. My goal is to just make friends, travel, understand most of what I hear or read, and that's about it. I have entire friendships, I think I said this in the first video, where we speak Russian to each other. And I understand basically everything they say to me. Can I answer with, can I answer fluently and can I answer with a great vocabulary? No, but I get by. So it depends on your goals. I mean, you have to keep it fun. You have to do whatever it takes to make it fun. And I'm very lazy. Like, I never got into Anki. I never got into flashcards. I've tried so many times to make flashcards work. I can't do it. I would try write phrases down and words down in a notebook, but then I would never go back. I actually did. I watched one TV show on YouTube, Moya lubi, moya vedma, a really corny like Russian sitcom, and I would write down. But it's great because they speak really clearly compared to other shows. I would write down phrases from that show in a notebook from every episode. But I never went back and reread my notes. So it's like, did writing down those phrases really help me? I don't know. So I would try to write things down, but very lazy, very all over the place, no real plan, no real strategy. And you can go check my channel, my other Russian-speaking videos, and see for yourself. I mean, I think my results are okay for a guy who is just doing it as a hobby and has no plan of action. I've never hired a private tutor. In my life, I had one lesson on italki and one lesson on Preply. I've never had a private tutor who helped me. I just chatted with Russian-speaking friends. And that's about it. Hopefully that made sense. It's hard for me to remember because, like I said, there was no real plan of action, and I'm talking about stuff that happened, 3 years ago. So I think but one huge thing is that I like Russian, and that towers over all of this stuff. The fact that I really love this language, that's huge. If you like the language enough, you won't notice the difficulties. It won't dawn on you that, whoa, the grammar's really messed up, because you'll just enjoy hearing the language, talking to people, using the language. You'll kind of block out all the nonsense and all the difficult stuff. So if you want to learn a second language, find the language you like. Don't worry that it's going to be useless. Oh, it's a useless language. No, language learning is an amazing hobby. The internet, you can talk to people who speak the language you're learning at any time. You don't have to go to the country. So find the language you like, keep it fun, learn through music, audiobooks, videos. If you like grammar, if grammar's fun to you, go ahead, buy a great textbook and have fun. I'm not saying you shouldn't learn grammar, but for me, it totally would have held me back. I'm so glad I kind of ditched traditional study and grammar learning. This video is getting pretty long. I'm starting to ramble now. You know, we are all different. We do learn differently, but I just wanted to try and detail what I did. Hopefully it made sense. If you're learning Russian, hopefully I provided some good advice and you took at least something of value from this video. All right, это все на сегодня. Да, я надеюсь, что это было понятно и полезно. И увидимся в следующем видео. Пока.